Hello and welcome to The Trade on this Friday afternoon, the last edition of the week. It's fantastic to have your company. I'm Kyle Rodder. So, well, we ask again, what's the story? Peter Kopetz from Equity Story joins me now to have a chat about a few stocks with some good stories attached to them. Peter, great to see you. It's been a really positive start to the trading year, it has to be said. We've got 6 or 7 stocks that we're going to go through today. We're going to begin actually with a couple that we looked at last time. To kind of, I guess, gauge where those trades have gone. And the first you can see on your screen there is obviously Stanmore Resources. To my eye, it looks like it's actually going quite well.
Exactly, and thank you for having me. I just wanted to touch upon some of these stories that we talked about because it's just interesting to see where they're at and whether they still be trading them, whether they should be taking some profits. And I've chosen 3 stories that are obviously doing quite well, but it's just interesting to see the actual, the reasons why they're still doing well. Because we picked them on a swinging trade. Obviously good stories, because we like to pick good stories before we do anything else. And then we're looking for that technicals to give us that go ahead, this is the time to buy it. And as you can see with SMR, it's been obviously going very, very well, right? So if you guys have been listening to our last couple of shows, you'll be obviously quite happy with it. But what do you do in this case when they've gone quite hard? Especially, I think today they are doing very, very well. I think when you look at a chart like this, you'd go to yourself, all right, I'm digging it. I'm liking where it's going, and I'm happy to hold on because normally our mantra is hold on to your winners, sell your losers, right? This is the best way, I suppose, to increase your wealth over the longer period of time. So all you're doing in this case is you're turning up your stop loss. You're holding on with a view that another week we might squeeze out another 1 or 2 or 3% out of this. So I'm liking the setup here. It's still looking pretty good, pretty strong green candle like you see for the end of the week. So it's still a hold, even though it's gone pretty hard, pretty fast.
Okay, still a hold, certainly momentum to the upside, as you can see there for the time being. Let's get to another one that we were talking about last time, which is Technology One. I'll just take a gander on the chart to refresh my memory a little bit. And well, by the looks of things here, obviously moving higher too, and probably coming to, I guess, a fairly key level there too, the most recent higher high.
It is, and we talked about how I love those swinging wave trades where it goes up, then it comes back, and it starts going up again. We picked it up on that, just starting to turn on the way up, and you can see that worked a treat for us again. Because we love momentum trading. When people are buying stories, there's usually a follow through for maybe a number of weeks or number of days, however you look at the charts. So in this case, a good story again. To start off with, we had that nice move of the trend lines, and now, like you said, you're coming to a pretty interesting pivot point. Is it going to go higher? I think the momentum again with a green candle looks like yes. But the other thing that's telling us that we're actually looking to buy this instead of actually selling and taking profits is the one on the bottom, which is the MACD that we look at. And this is to us a great setup. It's called a buy signal. We love that setup. We love that swinging chart. We're actually buying this instead. So we're not selling, we're not holding, we're buying if you don't have it. It's looking pretty good. Fundamentals are good. Good looking chart.
Yeah, okay, certainly is another good looking chart there. Again, to round out the 3 that we did dig into last time, Fisher and Paykel, and again this one almost looks the most positive of the 3, especially because it's now, at least to my eye, starting to break out and perhaps reverse trends. Am I sort of on the money there? Because at least that last green candle is very, very attractive.
Oh, 100%. You're absolutely right with this one, right? So we looked at it again, very similar setup to TNE, swinging charts. It had a pretty good run, maybe about 6, 7, 8 weeks ago on the update. It came back with a bit of profit taking to the trend lines. Those profit takers, went to probably somewhere else. New buyers came in, and look at it. It's just looking so great this week, higher than previously. So it looks like a breaker, like you said. It's looking actually very, very positive. I'd be probably looking to buy this again and looking for another trade towards maybe that $28, $29.
Okay, so potentially, I should say, adding to that position. All right, let's get a few freshies now, and one that's been in the headlines. In fact, one that I've been tracking a fair bit, just because it constantly shows up on the laggards list, was Telix Pharmaceuticals. Had a tough couple of days, as you can see there, in the last weekly candle. But there was some news out this week, reported or provided a little bit of an update, How are you seeing this stock? Do you buy this dip potentially?
Yeah, I am. The chart's not maybe fantastic, but I'm more actually excited about the fundamentals of this. So obviously there wasn't a great week last week, but they updated this week with the cash flows. And that to me was almost like a pivotal point where they're coming into a period of cash flow positivity. And that to me over the last few months has been a massive boost to some of these stocks. And this is what I can see with this one particularly. And when I did a bit of a deep dive into the story, Kyle, I'm actually thinking this has got quite substantial potential here. It's almost reminded me of CSL in the early days. And I know this is a big call at CSL, you're kidding me. But it does have that feel. I mean, we've been looking for another CSL for a long time. There's only one CSL we've got here on ASX. Is there another biotech out there that can potentially, give us something else to invest into? And this is sort of starting to look quite interesting with time. I'm looking at the clinical pipeline at the moment, and they've got many little products in development. The one that's really sparked the interest for me and probably everyone else out there is that Illuccix, which is looking at prostate cancer. So, look, I think if you just take the long-term view with Telix, there's a lot of things happening right now. There's going to be a lot of potential announcements coming through, and it looks pretty positive when they've got already cash flows coming through with this Illuccix as their main, I suppose, revenue driver for the moment. So a lot of promise, high risk for sure, because it's still early days. But if they can play the cards right, they get some of these products up and running, get approved in the US. I see this as a massive potential for the future.
Okay, so maybe the next big healthcare name on our market. At least we can hope. It'd be nice to have another one like CSL in the portfolio. But Altium, another name. This is pure tech, really. How are you seeing this one? Because again, it's one that obviously doesn't jump out as being necessarily in a structural uptrend, but price obviously moving high, a bit of momentum to the upside. What's the story there?
Yeah, look, it's probably more, it's probably two things here. First of all, it's a market darling, right? Altium has been a market darling for a long time. Like you said, it's probably not structurally going up as per se on a chart, but it's the setup below that I love on the MACD again, and that's the buy signal that I'm looking at through here. So a swinging chart for me is always good. So we've had that come back to the trend lines, had a couple of green candles. It's set up for a little bit of a move to maybe to $40. So you can see here maybe 10% out of this if things go well on this buy signal. And if they report well, because remember we're coming up to the reporting season in February, if they report well, we could see even more out of this. Hopefully they'll report well, of course. If they doesn't report well, they're in trouble. But we are hoping they're going to report well, because on a previous report that they've come up late last year, they've updated quite well. So I'm just going on historical. That's we are on the right track for further good news.
Okay, so keep an eye out there for further good news for Altium. Well, we spoke about a potential CSL. Let's just go straight and talk about the Big Mac Daddy, which is CSL. Interesting one here because, again, range bound in many respects. 280 and 300 seems pretty locked in as the range at the moment. But how do you see it right now? Again, last week, by the looks of things, we had a tasty little rally there.
Yeah, look, I'm actually going to put my neck on the line here, and I'm saying it's probably going to get out of this sideways trending range. Not just because of the setup here on the chart, and this is a very good chart setup because, again, it's got a buy signal for us. That's one of the strongest signals for us to have a look at a story for a trade. And, of course, you can see this green candle this week, which is also positive for us. But the fact that they're reporting next month, they've reported recently or updated us that's going quite well. The company's got a very good history of under-promising, over-delivering. So it's set up for a potential breakout from its training range, right? So I'm looking at this as maybe a longer-term investment or a trade, as you say. It's been waiting trading for quite some time. It's time for it to take the next step. And I think if I'm reading the signals from the company itself, I'm thinking that February we could see some movement upside to maybe 330, even further than that.
Okay, so hopefully waiting and playing eventually that breakout. Okay, so next one we've got here is Premier Investments, and again another one that's looking fairly constructive on the charts here, especially in the short term, seeming sort of to sort of carve out a very short term uptrend. Premier Investments, you obviously like it?
Yeah, look, it's strangely enough, right? We've been sort of thinking that the interest rate rises will probably put some dampener on retail sales in Australia, and we might not see great performances, but it's actually been the opposite. The retail sales actually been quite well still, even though the interest rise is supposed to be put some sort of a brakes on some of this exuberant spending. But the companies themselves, early January, have been reporting pretty well. So you are getting that feel that maybe things are still going okay here in Australia. And when you look at some of these charts, it gives you confidence to have a go at some of these trades. And then you sort of go, okay, what's good in this retail space? You really can't go past PMV, right? One of the probably top three maybe stories in Australia retail-wise, led by Solomon Lew, probably the premier rag trader in the business. And when you see that chart, him behind the wheels or the wheel, and you see how the other company reported, I'm expecting something similar to come through with PMV. So I'm fairly bullish and confident that they're going to come up with a good update, especially when we've got the reporting season coming up. So I'm happy with it set up here, and I'm looking for a nice trade moving forward.
Okay, so constructive there, Premier Investments. Another retail play, and it has to be said, the consumer discretionary stocks are up by about 8% since the start of the year, so defying a lot of that doom and gloom. Just a piece of trivia, of course. But final stock that we're going to look at today is actually one that I really only sort of discovered or learnt about when you brought it to the table today, Peter, which is Dropsuite. Can you explain the story behind this one?
Yeah, so look, Dropsuite is a little company that's probably flying under the radar for me anyway. I mean, it's in the big space of cybersecurity. So what it does is does backups for companies out there with emails or any other possible work that you might have. So we've seen a lot of these recent issues with Optus of the world, the Medibanks of the world, that they've come up and saying we've been hacked. So when you think to yourself, oh my goodness, what's going on around here? This is just probably the start. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. Cybersecurity. Companies need to spend money. They need to protect privacy and people's details on companies, because we just give our information to everyone pretty much whenever we want to buy something or whenever we want to join something. So I think this is an incredibly important long-term theme that's going to keep going and getting bigger and more important as we go along. So for me, companies just have to, it's one of the most important spending they have to do in their lives if they want to be treated really seriously by investors or clients. So this company fulfills that little niche spot of protecting or at least backing up the data that might be hacked or might be compromised in certain ways. So Dropsuite for me has been flying under the radar. It's been growing its revenues very consistently over the last 2 or 3 years. It's actually cash flow positive as well. And really, it's in a precarious position where potentially it might get to that size where, I suppose the biggest, more serious investor will be looking at in the near term. So I'm liking where it's going. I'm liking the space that it's in. They've just recently updated the quarterly, talking about the growth is still there. They're going to be looking at the bottom line, and it's quite important with some of these small tech stocks that they are actually looking at and being balanced view. So for me, what a great story to have for the long term. If they can play the cards right, as an investment in a portfolio, that you can have that 10-year horizon and see that sort of portfolio getting bigger and bigger for you. So I'm really digging this company, and I think this is a long-term great opportunity.
All right, really enjoy speaking to you, Peter, and really appreciate that last one as well. Something that's slightly left of field, obviously ones that maybe, folks at home haven't considered, new ideas. So really appreciate it. Got to wrap things up for another day, but fantastic to get your insights once again. Have a great weekend, Peter Kopetz from Equity Story.
Thank you.
Okay, well, just before we wrap up the trade for the day and for the week, let's get to Lizzie O'Neill. She's at the Cboe Australian Markets Desk. Lizzie, tell us what's happening out there.
Good afternoon, Kyle. Well, the local market is flat at the moment, and it's a bit of a mixed bag across the sectors, but the energy sector is the clear winner, rising on the back of an increase in oil prices. Both Woodside Energy and Santos up today. Meanwhile, Whitehaven Coal has risen. Now, that's off the back of its output expanding, quadrupling actually for the first half of fiscal 2023. That's its profit there. FY23 guidance has been maintained and costs are tracking at the lower end of the guidance at $95 to $102 a tonne. But the La Nina weather events have impacted the first half of the December quarter. Whitehaven says labour shortages remain an issue for its operations and is expecting further volatility due to ongoing global economic pressures. Its shares are up nearly 6% at $9.48 a share. Interestingly, Super Retail Group has also risen. Now, that's despite the Fair Work Ombudsman commencing proceedings against it over the pay of its staff. Super Retail self-reported it back in 2018 and has paid back nearly $53 million in entitlements and interest to current and former staff. But the Fair Work Ombudsman alleges the methodology used by Super Retail in its remediation program resulted in only the partial back pay of sample employees. Now it's up 0.32% at $12.53 a share, Kyle, and also Perpetual is at a 2-month high. Now that's as it looks to wrap up its acquisition of Pendle Group, which will be on Monday.
Lizzie, thank you so much. We will have a chat with you, I believe, before the end of the day. If not, thank you so much for the contributions this week. Lizzie O'Neill at the CBO Australia Markets Desk. But let's call it there. That's a final edition of The Trade this week. Thank you so much for your company throughout the week. Remember, we will be back again on Monday for all the trading action. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.
The Trade is brought to you by ACY Securities, Tim Cahill's official FX and CFD trading partner.